Hey, welcome back to a episode of In the Chute. Kalen, stump me.
Okay. A viewer, a subscriber asked a very good question. Dan, thanks for it. You dropped that on us. It was towards the end of February, and that's why we're recording it now. It's coming out later. But he talked about skilled labor. I replied back as part of the Hashknife YouTube channel, like, hey, what exactly do you mean by skilled labor? And he went over a bunch of things that he sees from his neck of the woods, talking about, skilled labor in terms of things like pasture improvement, manure spreading, fencing and boundary work, contract milking, contract sheep flocks, etc. He said the list is almost endless. So again, thanks Dan for the comment and your explanation of what my request back to you was great. And so you said specifically, Dan, that too many farms are too isolated and inward looking and need to diversify and develop outside income streams. And that you said, granted, in your opinion, and I think you're absolutely right to some people. And my question kind of to Dad to have a quick conversation in the next 15 minutes about it was, what's the challenges or the benefits of us getting outside incomes? And we have kind of talked about this a little bit, but getting outside incomes versus being inward focused, like Dan said, because in my opinion, it depends on the operation. We've talked about things like this before. What might work in somewhere else might work elsewhere, but it might not work here. And so I think to us, being inward focused to us is more of looking at efficiency. How can we make things better? How can we do this so that it's not so much coming out of our pocket and it's more now coming into our pocket in terms of expenditures and revenue. So what are kind of your thoughts on that? Because he was saying skilled labor, but I think to us, it was mostly like, we need to figure out our own skills and be able to take care of as much as we can on our own, in our own way, without having to produce expenditures to get people to come in and do it.
Oh, I thanks a lot for that question. That's a very, very good question and a thoughtful one. The first thing that comes to mind for me is we already do that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
We inward focus as much as we can, and then we do, outside or diversification type work in order to make, a little extra income, a little bit of revenue stream without being part of the place. And in a way, it is like the clinics, for instance, is a good example of that. I'll go outside to teach clinics, but you're using expertise that is here because we also train horses. We raise and train them. So that's just a natural extension of that for us that is not organically driven from the place itself, but you're taking your knowledge and skill set outside and having people pay you for that. So that blends really nicely. I mean, it has worked for us, and we've done, a lot of clinics that way, made a lot of additional income. Everything we do, it seems, is a diversification of skilled labor for ourselves.
Right.
For instance, welding.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I'm not very good at. Frankly, I have seen guys weld that are, I mean, it looks like a robot did the welding. They're just, that is what they do though. I mean, that was what their education was. And it is just, it drops your jaw to see what they can weld. I am not anywhere close to that.
And I'm not.
Yeah, I mean,
but Braden is, because he's perfect at everything. So
well, yeah, there is that. It's kind of fun to watch him struggle though. So anyway,
yeah, it is.
I watched him struggle recently, and he got, yeah, it was tough. So, you have people like that do that. We when we're in a spot where I need something that's maybe welded or fabricated, and I don't think it's part of my skill set, then I'll have somebody else do that.
Well, and I think another thing too is like talking about the expenditure piece. I think sometimes we'll also kind of barter our labor too.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about, hey, if you can make this for me, I'll help you. I don't know. An example would be I'll help you with branding or something like that, or I'll help you build fence. If you need a fence built one day.
Like, and if the IRS is listening, this is theoretically, we never do that. Freaking government parasites. But anyway,
but like things like that happen though, because like you have a skill set or an ability that they might not have. And that's the same thing, I think, to kind of answer his question too, is he said they have, people that do boundary work or putting up fences. For us, most of the people around here don't know how to put up a fence right, or at least or not is as well put as they could potentially, because they're just in a hurry to get it done. So it's better if we just do it ourselves, and we
Well,
maybe
and
like
that's if,
get a
yeah,
college kid or a high school kid to pay them for a day to help.
yeah, or a week or whatever it takes, whatever stretch we're doing. But there are also there are companies, and we have one here locally, that's what he's done for, several decades, is build fence, and he builds great fence.
Yeah.
The issue with that again is then the expenditure. Is it something feasible that you can hire someone to do, and it is done quickly and it's done right, but it's not without cost, and
Right.
so there's that trade-off. And you know what? If it was up to me, I would love to be able to hire every piece of fencing done. I mean, it
Certain
would be
parts
good.
of it.
Certain parts of it, yeah. So that stuff is done. Yeah, and I've worked a horse for somebody for a little bit less money, and they kicked in something else. So yeah, that has happened in the past. And you do trade skills like that. Mechanic work, you do what you can. Um, Mostly scab it together. Sometimes you get lucky and it works out really well, but there are times when you go, okay, hey, I need you to do this. And I think mechanics probably get hit with trade stuff all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Like, hey, I can't afford this, but can you work on this, and I'll do whatever. So I mean, I think that potentially is there, and it does happen somewhat. But I think some of the things he's talking about, one of the things that happens here is grinding feed, for instance. You have guys that have a big tub grinder, and they will come to your place and they will grind a bunch of feed up for you so that you can feed it out. Particularly, some of the feedlot type areas where they don't want to buy that equipment. Those are expensive pieces of equipment,
Right.
and just have that hired, and
In a
works out
sense,
well.
it's more efficient to lease that for a couple of days and get it all taken care of than it is to outright buy it.
But yeah, and you're not even really leasing it. You're just paying for their service, because they're the ones that
Right.
are grinding it. You may have the tractor and you may be dumping it in there, but they're the one that's doing it. Or you provide them a tractor to be able to do that. That happens quite a bit. There's some businesses like that as well. So not a bad thing. People drive truck, to haul whatever commodity. Uh, Malt barley is a big deal down there in the Yellowstone Valley. A lot of malt barley, a lot of sugar beets. And so guys will hire out, uh, from their place to drive a truck, or, do whatever somebody needs, as a little extra income. And I haven't done that, but, um, whenever you go outside to bring in some income like that, then you are automatically taking your focus off that inward, um, or I think he called it inward focus, right?
Yeah.
You're
Well,
you're
and
you're
I think
taking away from that.
the point he was making though is sometimes to their detriment. People look, or operations look too inward instead of looking like what you said. The greatest example for our area is that feed part, the grinding up
Mhm.
part. What else would we do? Oh, we'd probably go out and we'd go get it. And so what do? We accrue debt, and then we would get it, and we'd
Right.
have this thing that we only use maybe once or twice a year. And for what purpose did we get it? But doing like what Dan said, instead we've gone out, we've gotten this skilled labor that comes to us and can knock it out in a day, maybe 2 days, get everything we need ground up, prepped, and done so that we don't have to do it. But it's a little expenditure on our part, but it still brought in a valuable source, and it made things better. So I think that's much more along the lines of what he was saying. And I think that's a great point that he brought up, because sometimes people they aren't looking outward. They're looking too inward and going, oh, we got to get this figured out. And it's to their detriment.
Well, and there's always the thing, if somebody's got a little bit of a starting out a feedlot and they can't afford that, and they've got the ability to grind some hay and then add some additional feed to it for a feeding operation.
Right.
And a lot of times you can grind a little poorer quality feed with better quality feed and make that stretch. It's an efficiency issue. So no, that's a good point on his, and that can lead to other ways to innovate.
Right.
Or think about how you can do something a little better, different. No, I think we all kind of do that. There are some places, like we talked on one in the Chute earlier about what's the biggest place that you could have. Well, the bigger you are, without having hired help, the less time you have to do any outside focus. It all has to be inward focus, but bring some of that. You may bring that expertise in to help out, and again, great efficiency to do that if you can afford it.
Right. Well, that's actually, to an extent, that's a reply to Dan and his comment. Again, anybody out there, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will continue to add some of the stuff that we get back, and
Yeah.
we'll give them as topics, and we'll have quick discussions about that. So with that, we will take that conversation and put it out to pasture.